Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining me. How are you? Have a good day, everyone, and God bless you. Alright, now we will come to today's news. According to ABC News, NORAD and the US military intercepted Russian nuclear bombers off the coast of Alaska. Today, for the second time this week. It was two of the two Bear bombers, which could or could not be holding some form of nuclear weapon. It seems Russia is again trying to provoke the US military as it gets as close to the line as it can without crossing it. Earlier today, Biden gave a public statement about his orders to shoot down the three unidentified aerial objects. They were shot down on his orders. It took 4 missiles in total, costing $400,000 each. He said he believes once the debris is recovered and gone through, we will find out these are scientific equipment and not something threatening from a foreign nation. So far, they have recorded nothing from the three, recovered nothing from the three down to objects which Senator Mike Lee of Utah said is suspicious. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has claimed that the West is attempting to turn Ukraine into a Russia-phobic militant military stronghold in regards to the war benefits we've been providing. It seems Ukraine is inching closer to becoming a member of NATO, which Russia has strongly warned against. In fact, it's the number one reason that we have the Russia-Ukraine war right now. Putin swore that if they became a member of NATO that he would attack, and once they said that they were going to, he moved his horses in. But here's what's going on. And this is where we could end up, in a multi-country war. President Lukashenko of Belarus announced today that if Ukraine moves closer to their border or makes any military move on Belarus, he will not hesitate to join military forces with Vladimir Putin and mow down Ukraine. He said he is dead serious about staying out of the war, unless Ukraine provokes him and his military power. Now, here's something very bizarre. General Mark Milley, the top general of the U.S. Armed Forces and one of the choices the Joint Chiefs of Staff members, announced this week on national television that Russia has lost the war and Ukraine will be victorious. He left everyone scratching their heads because around the same time, the head leader of NATO announced Ukraine is on the verge of running out of ammunition to defend herself. Meanwhile, according to Colonel Douglas Macgregor, his sources tell him that Ukraine has over 60,000 rounds of ammunition they can fire through each and every day, which is 10 times the amount that Ukraine has until they run out of ammunition. So why would General Mark Milley go on national television and tell the American people that Russia has lost the war when clearly they have not? Do you think that this is to rally us before they announce another big spending package? Is this to buoy up the hopes of people in Europe? Or is this just flat-out lies to try to deceive the American people? Now, a newly released Rasmussen poll has shown that Biden is more popular among Democrats than Trump is among Republicans. While a whopping 82% of Democrats pledged their support for Biden, only 74% of Republicans pledged their support for Trump. So although Democrats don't want Joe Biden to be their party leader, if he is the party leader, 82% say that they will support him. Meanwhile, Trump is losing ground with Republican voters. Now, the national polls also predicted that in a Biden versus Trump head-to-head vote-off that Biden is up by 3 percentage points as of right now. So both parties silently wish there were other people to choose from and vote for. But this is the situation right now. If these two men end up running against each other, Donald Trump's election claims have been shut down again by a grand jury in the state of Georgia. The jury stated, "We find by unanimous vote that no widespread fraud took place in the Georgia 2020 presidential election that could result in overturning the election." So basically, there was some but not enough to flip the election. This ruling is horrible for Trump, because he continues to say that there was widespread election fraud, which is hurting his reputation as people are waiting for evidence to come forward. However, on the other side, the grand jury was unable to show that Trump did anything illegal to interfere with the outcome or broken the laws as far as witness intimidation, or getting the Secretary of State Raffensperger to flip the election. So if you go and read the headlines are basically lead you to believe that Trump was found guilty and is a criminal and has done something wrong. But as you read through the article, it's just another giant nothing burger. Alright, now I have a lot more to share with you. Okay, back to Trump. He has attacked a conservative advocacy group named the Club for Growth after they didn't invite him to their annual donor retreat. Despite not being in favor of Trump himself. The club endorsed Trump's ally, Senator Rick Scott of Florida. Trump reacted to the news by stating bad news for Senator Rick Scott of Florida. Club for No Growth just announced they are going to back him, and without my backing them, an endorsement from them is a kiss of death. So basically what Trump is saying is listen. He's throwing a little bit of a pity party, but I understand what he's trying to do here. He's basically saying, listen, you're not going to get the Trump-loving MAGA voters on your side if you continue to block me from being a part of politics in the state of Florida. So little bit of a skirmish between that senator and the former president. Speaking of former presidents, Mike Pence has opened up about the recent subpoena against him to testify against Donald Trump. In regards to January 6, he stated the executive branch may not compel anyone in their legislative duties to appear, as the Constitution says, in any other place. The DOJ knows that despite the fact that the DOJ took the position that the speech and debate clause of the Constitution applied to me and my role as the President of the Senate twice in the past 2 years. Now they have issued a subpoena to compel me to testify. So we're going to fight. So it's interesting. On the one hand, they praise Mike Pence for following the Constitution and not overturning the electorates as Trump had hoped, in 2020, but at the same time, now they're bashing him, saying, why won't you testify that this guy tried to rig the election and overturn the election? And he's saying he didn't. And I'm also not going to come in and lie, and I have executive privilege to not discuss these things under oath. So we'll see what ends up happening. The stock market is red today, with all major indexes being down on average 1.5 points on the day, as the market reacts to additional inflation data that was negative. Gold and silver were basically neutral. Winnie the Pooh and his friends from the 100-acre woods turn 100, which means they now belong to the public domain. A movie maker has made a new film called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey, where Pooh Bear and Piglet go on a killing spree. Anyway, it looks really gross and really gruesome. Really disappointed that this movie was made. But one of the let the parents out there know, don't rent this movie. Don't put this on. This is absolutely not for children. Breitbart News had been interviewing people dealing with the train explosion in the state of Ohio. And basically they're saying, listen, we're having stomach aches, pain in our abdomen. People are coughing up blood. So there's a lot of health issues going on in the area since the explosion of this vinyl chemical that was in these train cars. But basically what's happening is Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, he's telling these Americans return home, go back to your normal life, everything's safe. But they don't know that for certain. And many of you in the comment section that live in Ohio are telling me that you're worried about water pollution, air pollution, and the dangers of the chemicals you could literally see from airplanes in space, like this toxic cloud of dark gray matter. And yet, here's Pete Buttigieg telling people go back home, go back to your regular lives now. If you lived in East Palestine, Ohio, would you be moving home back yet? I mean, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would not be going back to this yet. And I see people in the comments section from previous videos saying that they live nearby and that they're not feeling well, that their animals are sick or dying. People are seeing hundreds or thousands of dead floating fish in the streams and tributaries. Terry's nearby yet again. Pete Buttigieg is saying ignore all of this, your health will be fine, go back home. It's very suspicious, and why they were trying to cover this up and not let the media talk about this makes it doubly suspicious for me. And it looks like John Fetterman is heading back to the hospital once again, this time for depression. If you guys don't know, John Fetterman was in the hospital here recently, when they fear that he may have had another stroke. John Fetterman, who had a stroke back on the campaign trail of 2022. And the midterm elections back in September, that he suffered and had put him in the hospital and of course made his brain mush, and they continued to try to run him. The Democrat Party and his wife, Giselle Fetterman, all wanted power. So they had to make sure that they put up this vegetable to run for office. Now he is in Walter Reed Hospital for clinical depression. And this is, I feel really bad for this guy at this point, because he's been taken advantage of. Maybe he's allowed himself to be taken advantage of by his wife and the Democrat Party, to further to Democrats' power grab and to continue to just ride this guy to the finish line, even though they knew he was in no condition to run for office. The doctor who cleared him obviously lied and told that one stroke had no impact on them, even though you could visibly see that there was something off about John Fetterman, even more so than his usual self. He couldn't hear right. He couldn't talk right. He couldn't process thoughts correctly. And yet this was demand that we're going to send to the United States Senate because the Democrats do not care. They care about power. And that is it. So that's coming to us from Breaking 911, and Pennsylvania Senator John Fetterman, hospitalized with depression, office says, "Yep, that's right." According to a statement from his office on Thursday, Pennsylvania Democrat Senator John Fetterman has admitted himself to the Walter Reed National Military Medical Center to receive treatment for clinical depression while still recovering from a stroke. Despite struggling with depression on and off throughout his life, Fetterman's symptoms became severe in recent weeks, as stated by his Chief of Staff Adam Tilson following an evaluation by Congress attending physician Brian Mohan on Monday. Fetterman was recommended for inpatient care at Walter Reed. He voluntarily agreed to receive the treatment. John Greet and receive is receiving treatment on a voluntary basis. Gentleman said after examining John to doctors at Walter Reed told us John is getting the care he needs and will be back to himself soon. Don't forget this. This is a crucial because he's been struggling with depression, because he cannot function like he used to. Prior to the stroke, he had a stroke. It limited his cognitive ability. Obviously, you go into a depression if you cannot fulfill the things you were able to do at one time. You struggle with that. And that's what he's doing right now. He's struggling with that because they forced them to go back on the campaign trail. They forced him to continue to run an office, even though people around him knew he was capable of serving that role and would put a huge, enormous stress on him. They didn't care. The theory that I laid out for you guys a couple of weeks ago, or when the story broke about him going into the hospital because of things related to his stroke, was that the plan was for the governor of Pennsylvania to appoint a new Democrat senator because they have already captured a seat. So they would go ahead and nominate a senator to go ahead and fulfill the rest of his this term. And the lean theory was that his wife would be that person. Just a theory. Thank you so much for listening. God bless. I'll be back soon with another report. God speak to each and every one of you. Thank you for all of your support. Thank you for all of your kind words.